Hello and welcome back. In this lesson, we will add admin user functionality to our app. As part of the security system or role-based permission system for any app, you'll have to add users who have different levels of permissions. You can have the regular user of any app who signs up. Then you can have moderators who can have more permissions, say of reviewing submissions or editing them. Then you can have admins who can do even more, like deleting users or even, or editing posts or recipes or anything, right? So as you can see, these systems can get pretty complicated depending on the requirements for these permission systems. And some applications focus very heavily on them. But there are simpler ways of adding this functionality. And for most web apps, the simpler way is good enough, right? So one way would be to add a role column to the chef's table and then define what those roles can do through functions. For example, you could have moderators and admins, and you could, depending on which functionality you want to expose or which action you want to expose to the moderator or make available to them, you can do that throughout the app. Okay. Now another way to implement this, and this is what we'll do for our app, is instead of adding a role column to the chef's table, you can add an admin column of type Boolean to the chef's table, which will basically return true only if the associated chef is an admin, right? So if the column says true, then the user or the chef is an admin. So let's go ahead and start building this functionality. So first thing I want to do is I want to show you what the chef's table currently looks like. So under DB, if you look at this file that says development.sqlite3, if you right click and download, okay, and then I'm going to pull up that file. So this is SQLite browser, so I'll open database. From downloads, there it is. Okay, now let's look at the chef's table. All right, so here you see all the fields that currently exist in the chef's table. Now I'm going to add an admin column to this, and I'm going to set the default of that admin column to be false, okay, just so it reads pretty good. And then if I want to assign an admin user, then I can just set that to true. Okay, so let's go ahead and build this. I'll close out of this. So first thing we'll do is Rails generate migration add admin to chefs. Okay, now let's pull up the file right here, the migration file. So here we're going to add column to chef's table. We're going to call it admin. It's going to be type Boolean. And this is something we haven't done before. We're going to set a default value, default to false. Okay? So let's go ahead and run rake db migrate. All right, so that created our table. Now I'm going to download this file again. So I'll right click, download. Okay. And I'll pull it up. Open database. Chef, browse data. Okay, you see how the admin field says false? Okay, so we can use this information now. So I'm gonna hop on Rails console. Okay, so let's say user equals chef.first. We'll grab the first user in our chefs table. Okay, and we see that the user is Bob at example.com. Okay, now I'll say user.admin question mark, and you'll see it returns false. Now if you look at our database, oops, I think I closed the database. Sorry about that. Let me just pull it up again. You see Bob admin is false, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to use a method to switch that to true. So you can do something like this. User.toggle exclamation mark, and then we're going to say what value we want to toggle, which is the admin column within parentheses, and then hit return. Now if I type in user.admin, you see it says true. Okay, so now if I reload this, I should expect this to be true, right? So let me go ahead and do that. So I'll download this latest file. Okay, now you see how Bob is an admin, right? So that's all the functionality we need for our app now to basically set permissions for the admin user. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that to our app. I'm going to first start the server. And the first update we're going to make is to the show recipe page. Okay, so I'll pull it up. Okay, I see a user, Bob, is already logged in, and Bob is an admin, so I'm just going to log the user out temporarily. So if I go to listings and then the first recipe. Okay, now if this recipe is created by Bob, okay, now if I were logged in as Bob, I would have the edit this recipe feature, right? What I want to do is I want this edit this recipe feature to show up for an admin user on every recipe, even if they did not create the recipe, right? So we have one admin user right now who's Bob. So I'm going to sign in as someone else, okay? So let me go ahead and log in. Okay, so I am now logged in as Mashroor. Now if I go to this, I see that I don't see that edit this recipe link, but if I go to this recipe, which is created by this user, if I click on that, I see I get the edit this recipe link, right? So I want the admin and the current user to see this link at all times. I don't want it to just show up for the current user. So let's go ahead and add that. So we'll go to the show recipes page. And right here, this is the edit this recipe link, right? Now it currently reads if logged in and recipe.chef equals current user, then we show this link, right? So we're going to add something else here. We want to add and at recipe.chef equals current user, or just the 2 bars, current user dot admin question mark. Okay, so what this is now saying is either the recipe creator is the current user, or if the current user admin returns true, then show this link. Okay, so let's go ahead and sign in as our admin. Okay, now this recipe is not created by the admin, but if I click on the recipe, I see this edit this recipe link is showing up, right? Okay, now this is still not enough information to get this to work, because if I do edit this recipe, now we just updated the user interface, right? But if I click on it, what happens? It says you can only edit your own recipes, because this is being controlled at the controller, at the recipes controller. So the UI is allowing it, but the recipes controller is not, because recipes controller requires the user who created the recipe to be the user who's basically logged in trying to edit the recipe. So we're gonna have to update the recipes controller. Okay, so let's pull that up. So under controllers, recipes controller. Okay, so you see here we have a before action, and the before action says require same user. Okay, only edit update. So let's go ahead and update this. Where's our method? Right there, it should be a private method. Okay, so if current user not equals recipe.chef, then we're basically redirecting, right? Now we need to add something here. If current user not equals recipe.chef and current user and not current user.admin. So what we're saying is that not just at recipe, not just the creator of the recipe, but also not an admin. Only then you redirect. So if it's the recipe creator or the current admin, then basically allow the action. Okay? So require same user is going to take care of that. And we're also, if you remember, we're guaranteeing that this current user is going to exist, because the require user gets executed before the require same user. So the before action of require user is basically ensuring, and right here we see that it's accept, show, index, and like. So that means for edit update it's executing. So that's ensuring that we have a current user at all times before the require same user gets executed. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what that did. So if I reload this page, go to a recipe right here. So now this recipe is created by John Doe. It's not created by our user logged in, the admin Bob. So let's click on edit this recipe, and we see that we can edit this, right? So let's try it out. Edited. We'll associate a third kind to this. Okay, your recipe was successfully updated. And you see that now it says edited, and it added that third styles association to this. Okay, so now we see that we can edit recipes if we're logged in as an admin. And just to test out that a regular user still doesn't have that functionality, I'll log in as a different user. Okay, so if I click here, I see there's no edit functionality. If I try to go from here, it will say you can only edit your own recipe. Okay, perfect. So this functionality is working. Now, a second thing I want to do is I want the admin user to have the ability to delete recipes. Okay? I don't want the current user to have that capacity, but I want the admin user to have that ability. Because, you may, as an admin, need to delete things sometimes. Now, I'm not going to add that feature to other things for our app. I'll just add it for the recipes. So let's go ahead and build that. Let's go back to our app. Okay, so first thing I want to do is go to our routes file. So config and routes.rb right here. Okay, so we see that right here we have resources recipes, and what this does is it exposes all of the actions for us, right? All of the routes. So I'm gonna exit out of Rails console, and then if I do rake routes, and then I want to do grep by chefs, actually recipes. And we see here we have the recipes destroy action, right? That's of type delete. So we want to build that. But also, if you notice, we're doing resources chefs except new, and we're handling the new in the register, get register URL, right? Now I want to not have the ability to destroy chefs in our web application. So I'm just gonna add, I'm gonna remove this route. Okay. I know we don't have the action there, but I just want it to read correctly. So let's just take that away. All right. So now if we look at recipes, so let me just test this out real quick. Chefs. Okay, see, we don't have the chef's destroy action or URL anymore. Okay, perfect.